Early this morning, the Biden administration announced it had negotiated a deal to avert a rail shutdown, just one day ahead of a deadline that would have allowed workers to go on strike. Rail unions have been working out of contract for 3 years as they negotiate a new deal with highly profitable freight rail companies to end exploitative labor practices. Workers want to have sick days so they are allowed to see doctors or attend to family emergencies, and current attendance policies leave them vulnerable to getting fired if they just need to take a day off. Ahead of the reported breakthrough, Republican senators tried to ram through legislation that would have forced rail unions to accept a business friendly framework put forward by an emergency board set up by President Biden to mediate the labor dispute. A number of rail unions involved in negotiations had already rejected the board's recommendations, and Senator Bernie Sanders blocked the legislation from receiving a vote in the upper chamber. Now, here's what we know so far about this reported agreement, the details of which have not been released at the time I'm recording this. In fact, the only entities that have confirmed the deal are the White House and the rail carriers. No word from the unions yet. According to the Washington Post, the deal does include leave policies that the carriers had been so far reluctant to concede. Workers will be allowed to take unpaid sick days without the threat of termination. They will also receive just one single paid day off a year. No details on any other staffing and scheduling changes the union was seeking. We're living in a pandemic, and workers have to threaten to shut down the economy just to be able to take leave from work when they are sick. And they won't even get paid for it. Not great. The deal does take off the table a strike, at least in the near term. It extends a cooling off period that prevents workers from picketing. Unclear how long that cooling off period is, but should workers reject the deal, they will have to wait until it expires before they can strike. Again, still awaiting more details, but whatever concessions are on the table now from rail companies, of course, wouldn't have been possible without the threat of a strike. Carriers hoped they could reject workers' demands at the negotiating table all the way up until a strike deadline, and then Congress would just step in to intervene and force workers to accept a shitty contract. But that didn't happen. Republicans didn't have the votes. And while the White House's emergency board didn't address rail unions' main concerns, President Biden did not move to enforce its recommendations on the workers, at least so far. And so rail companies were left with no other option but to actually negotiate with the unions in order to avert a strike that would have crippled their business operations. Whether these pretty meager concessions go far enough will ultimately be up to rank and file members of the rail unions. They will have a chance to vote on the agreement in the coming days and weeks. In other labor news, the ongoing organizing campaign at Starbucks got some attention on Capitol Hill. The House Education and Labor Committee convened a hearing on barriers to labor organizing, and it featured testimony from Starbucks Workers United organizer Michelle Eisen. Much of the focus on the organizing effort has been on the company firing organizers and closing stores to try to block successful union elections. But there's also the issue of how the company has responded to cafes that have already unionized and are now trying to collectively bargain. Eisen worked at the very first Starbucks to unionize, one in Buffalo, and she was asked during the hearing how negotiations have been going since. Here was her assessment.
And it has been almost 9 months since the workers won their election, but they have not yet reached a first collective bargaining agreement with Starbucks. Why has it taken so long to reach an agreement? And what has been the sticking points at the table?
The simple answer is that we haven't reached an agreement because Starbucks doesn't want to. We were certified on December 16th of 2021, and we sent our demand to bargain a few days later. It took them far longer than it should have to respond to a simple email. It took almost, 2 months to get to that first bargaining session. The workers at my store have been ready to bargain from day one. The sticking points have been mostly just delay tactics and insults from the company and their spokespeople. We actually don't really talk to many of the corporate members. Their main spokesperson is a Littler Mendelson attorney. who spends more time being condescending and not taking our concerns seriously than they do actually looking at proposals.
So basically, workers are having to negotiate with a stooge at one of the most notorious union-busting firms in the country. And it appears the company's strategy is, even if a store votes to unionize, ensure workers there never get a contract. Sounds like we need another one of these hearings on Capitol Hill, but next time, Howard Schultz needs to be there. Hey, thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of our new videos. Also, if you want to see Means Morning News in its complete form, not just the clips we post here, head on over to Means TV and get access to all our new episodes and our entire backlog, plus tons of other great movies and original TV shows.